According to a recent survey done by Gallup, 76% of employees will experience burnout at least once at some point in their careers. Now, we often make the assumption that burnout is the result of being overworked. So we think that if we work fewer hours, we'll solve the problem. If we take a holiday or a day off here and there, that will do the trick. However, the research done by Gallup showed that although the number of hours worked does play a role in employee burnout, with that risk increasing substantially when people work more than 50 hours a week, what they found, it is actually how people experience their workload that has a greater bearing on burnout than merely the number of hours worked. Their research showed that engaged employees who have work flexibility tend to work more hours and yet report higher levels of well-being. When people feel motivated, inspired, and supported in the work they do, they tend to do more work and they find their work substantially less stressful. In other words, it's not just about the number of hours worked, but it's how you're managed and how you experience work that matters most. According to the research done by Gallup, the top 5 factors influencing burnout the most are: number 1, unfair treatment at work. Secondly, unmanageable workload. Thirdly, unclear communication from managers. Number 4, lack of manager support. And lastly, unreasonable time pressure. Now, when we look at this list, we see that these are all things the manager can influence considerably. What we thought would be a sprint at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic has now turned into a marathon. Leaders and managers are going to need to be far more deliberate in helping prevent employee burnout on their teams than ever before. And according to the findings of Gallup's research, the 5 best things you can do to prevent, or at least help prevent, employee burnout on your team are: firstly, you can help ensure that your employees are treated fairly. Secondly, that their workloads are manageable. That you communicate clearly and regularly with your team members. Fourthly, that you support them in all they need to do. And I would recommend engaging in dialogue with them as to how they would like you to support them going forward. And lastly, that you set reasonable timelines for the completion of their work. Now, for best practices around setting expectations, you can refer to my video entitled Closing the Gap Between Expectation and Reality. So to conclude, yes, everyone needs the occasional break. That is important. But unless you deal with the root causes of burnout, time off will have little effect. Employees who regularly experience burnout are 2.6 times more likely to actively look for a new job than those who don't. Now is the time not to be losing your best people because of burnout. Now is the time for leaders and managers to do what they can to help prevent burnout on their teams.